I was a junior at a small liberal arts college nestled in the heart of a sleepy town, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone and life moved at a leisurely pace. My major was in communications, with a minor in music theory, a blend that perfectly aligned with my love for music and storytelling. Taking the job at the college radio station was a no-brainer. It was a chance to escape from the rigorous demands of academia and to connect with the eclectic mix of personalities that dotted our campus. The radio station, a cozy room filled with vintage posters and records, was my sanctuary. I'd spend hours curating playlists, a mix of obscure indie bands and classic hits, creating a soundtrack for the late-night souls. Why did I take this job? It wasn't for the money, definitely not for college credit. It was for the love of music and the magic of radio. There's something about the quiet of the night, the way music fills the void, that felt almost therapeutic. The radio station became my own little world, a place where I could be myself, sharing my passion for music with anyone who was listening. My classes were interesting but demanding, filled with theories and case studies. But the radio station, that was where I felt alive. It was where I could share a piece of myself, connect with listeners, and maybe just for a moment, make someone's night a little less lonely. Taking calls was a regular part of my overnight DJ duties. I'd chat with other students, mostly about music requests, and sometimes with local townspeople who were up late and felt like sharing stories or opinions. It was usually lighthearted and fun. There's a sense of camaraderie in those small hours of the night. Occasionally, there were pranksters, typically students trying to be funny, but it was all in good spirits. But then that first unsettling call came. It was a particularly quiet night, the kind where the air feels heavy and time seems to slow down. The voice on the other end was a stark contrast to the usual callers. It was raspy, strained, as if speaking took a considerable effort. "You're not alone tonight," the voice whispered eerily. My initial reaction was to laugh it off on air, brushing it aside as just another college prank. But something about the call felt different. The words lingered in the air long after the call ended, and a chill ran down my spine. I tried shaking off the unease, telling myself it was just a weird joke, but deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just a regular prankster. The studio, usually my place of comfort, suddenly felt too big, too quiet. I found myself glancing over my shoulder, peering into the dimly lit corners, half expecting to see someone or something, watching. The unsettling calls soon became a haunting routine. Every night, precisely at 2:15, the phone would ring. Each time, it was the same eerie, raspy voice, now increasingly cryptic. "The shadows whisper your name," it would say, or, "What's hidden in darkness will come to light." The words were like riddles, the meaning elusive and disturbing. I started to dread the approach of 2:15 every night. My heart would race, my hands would tremble. I considered involving law enforcement, but what would I say? That a mysterious caller was unnerving me with vague threats. The calls were untraceable, adding to the feeling that I was dealing with a ghost, a specter that existed only in the airwaves and my mind. The tension was palpable in the studio. I tried to maintain a facade of normalcy for my listeners, but my voice would falter whenever the clock neared that cursed time. The experience was isolating. It felt like a personal torment, a psychological game meant just for me. The caller's words haunted me even during the day, making me question the shadows and the unseen corners of my world. Overwhelmed by the anxiety these calls induced, I made the difficult decision to step away from the radio station. The silence of my nights away from the studio was a stark contrast to the haunting anticipation of the calls. I spoke to other DJs, probing discreetly about their experiences, hoping to find someone who shared mine, but their lack of similar encounters only heightened my confusion and fear. This isolation, this feeling that I was singled out, was disconcerting. As weeks turned into a month, the pull of the radio station, my haven of music and late-night camaraderie, grew stronger. I rationalized the calls as an elaborate hoax, a figment of my overactive imagination, exacerbated by the late hours and isolation. With a mix of trepidation and longing for normalcy, I returned to my midnight slot. To my dismay, the very night I donned the headphones again and greeted my invisible audience, the phone rang at 2:15, like clockwork. The familiar raspy whisper sent a shiver down my spine, erasing any hope that the hiatus had deterred the caller. Their knowledge of my return, their calculated timing, it all pointed to a deliberate, targeted campaign against me. The realization was chilling, reinforcing my fear that I was entangled in a psychological game far beyond my comprehension. Night after night, the calls had woven a web of unease around me, but nothing could have prepared me for that particular call. It was different, not just in tone, but in the palpable fear it conveyed. The voice, once cryptic and unsettling, was now laced with panic. "They're here," it whispered in a frantic, breathless hush. "The ones in the shadows. They're real, and they're here." Then, abruptly, the line went dead, plunging the studio into an eerie silence. That call shattered the last vestige of my composure. I felt a deep, unnerving sense of being watched, as if invisible eyes were fixated on me from every corner of the studio. The shadows seemed to pulsate with a life of their own, and every little noise, the creak of a chair, the hum of the equipment, sounded like conspiratorial whispers. The studio, once my haven, now felt like a glass cage, offering no protection from the unseen forces that the caller had alluded to. Fear gripped me, a cold, unrelenting grip that made me question reality. What were these shadows the caller spoke of? Were they a figment of a deranged mind or something far more sinister and inexplicable? The uncertainty of it all was maddening. Even after the calls ceased, the anxiety they instilled in me lingered. Each night, as 2:15 approached, a knot of dread would form in my stomach. The fear spilled over into my daily life, casting a shadow over mundane moments. I tried talking about it with friends and family, hoping for some relief, but their laughter and dismissive remarks only deepened my sense of isolation. Their skepticism couldn't erase the reality of my experience. Now, over a decade later, the memory of those calls haunts me almost daily. It's as if the voice left a permanent imprint on my psyche, a reminder of the unseen terrors that might lurk in the shadows. The fear has ebbed, but it never fully disappeared, a constant whisper in the back of my mind, questioning the nature of those calls. Was it just a twisted prank or something more? This unanswered question remains a haunting enigma, a chilling chapter in the story of my life.